Yo, 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 what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another weekly episode of the Vols ATB podcast. Pleased to be joined by my boy, Drew. We will be joined by Rob later on in the episode, but back for a second week. As y'all can tell, we got some new things going on, new little overlay, new little intro, trying to renew everything up before we get to wait, are we live on Twitter?
Yeah,
Hopefully we can make sure we're live on Twitter,
says we're
but
live. So,
hopefully we are live. But yeah, man, jam-packed week, jam-packed episode. We'll be joined by Rob here shortly. Drew, first off, man, how you doing?
yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Can't really complain one bit. We're about 3 weeks away till it's football time in Tennessee. It's right around the corner. Got a lot of good juicy notes when it comes to practice today, and of course, we got the first scrimmage of fall camp on Friday as well. So, a lot of stuff to unpack, a lot of stuff to unwind. Things to look out for, not just from today's practice, but obviously this week moving forward. And yeah. It's an exciting time, man. Just football's right around the corner. Can't complain.
Yeah, I kind of got scared for a little bit because when I started the live, it showed me the ATB Network Twitter. I forgot the
All
whole
right.
the premium thing or whatever. But yes, you heard that right. We are talking about practice, as Alan Officer said. It's the time of day or time of year we enjoy talking about the practice as much as we get. Only 10 to 15 minutes available to the media, so our notes, yes, take them with a grain of salt. But man, we're talking about practice. 24 days away from Tennessee football. It's that energy in the air. And man, I think the most importantly, first thing I wanted to talk about is the Jordan Thomas news. You look at these practice notes, you hear all the negative things over the weekend. We did learn before Sunday's practice that Jordan Thomas, starting star, hoping to be a guy that increased his production on the field this year after a couple years in the system. He is out for the season with a knee injury. Tennessee's starting star, where they really thought they could move Jordan Thomas around pretty much anywhere. He is out for the season. So, Drew, I want to get your takeaways on that. What do you think Tennessee's best fit is for that position? Do they go young guys, freshmen? Do they go to a guy with experience? What do you prefer?
Yeah, anytime that you lose a guy that's projected to be a starter, especially in our secondary, let's be real, like they collapse a decent amount or a large amount after Kamal Hadden going down against Alabama last year. It's a tough loss for us. I don't think it's the end of the world by any means, but just from a depth perspective, it's somebody that you would want to have, who's going to be competing for that starting role. But from what I've heard today, Tim Banks has been given a lot of one-on-one instruction to Boot Carter, who has, everybody's looking at potentially filling up that star position and being the starter comes, August 31st against Chattanooga. So I would expect him to take over that role. He seems like a natural fit, very athletic kid, even with being a true freshman. He was even competing for the starting role already. So tough loss for Jordan Thomas, of course. Obviously, fingers crossed that his whole entire injury process goes well. He'll be back and ready for 2025. But not time yet to hit the panic button. I wouldn't worry too much, but it is still a tough loss though, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm not hitting the panic button yet either, but I just got a feel for Jordan Thomas, man, a guy that last year, had some issues with his shoulder, played late in the season, got some time in that bowl game. And then, this year everyone's like penciling it in, kind of being like, this is a guy that, he might not have on the field experience, but he's been in that room. And now it's finally time where he can put it all together. Getting the news that he is out for the season, looks to Tennessee, the guys that are on scholarship, Boo Carter, obviously the guy that's a lot of people have looked at. Christian Charles, a guy that's also been banged up and had his fair share of injuries, but he looks to be like he's healthy and going to have a year where he can probably put some production in. And then I've heard some Christian Harrison chatter there as well. But you look at this room and those three guys, maybe there's some walk-ons in there that the staff will consider as well leading up to the start of the season. But a staff like Willie Martinez and Tim Banks that the last 3 years have basically leaned on the experience. You look at a room where the experience might not be all the way there. And maybe if you're, pointing to experience as Christian Charles, a guy that's been, with the Vols for a couple of years now. But, I think it's a perfect opportunity where this staff can go out of their roots and maybe invest in a freshman. And all the things we've heard about Boo Carter is, playing 100 miles per hour, a guy that's just, a guy that wants to be a playmaker. And a lot of us, a couple, last recruiting cycle, when we heard that Tennessee liked Boo Carter on the defensive side, we're like, he has so many playmaking abilities. running the ball or with the ball in his hands. Now, early on in the season, before the season even starts, we're talking about Boo Carter possibly being a true freshman starter. So yes, all the eyes are probably on Boo Carter, but man, I just think overall, interested to see what Martinez and Banks do given their history there. And man, it's a position that Tennessee probably would have liked it to be anywhere else on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is unfortunate, because I think the thing is, and I'm sure you probably agree with me on this take, is that there's talent there in that position, especially in the secondary, but it's a lot of unproven talent, it's a lot of young talent as well. And I mean, and I think Bukar will wind up being a great player, but you got to have that expectation that he's going to be like any other freshman. Like there's going to be some freshman mistakes that he's going to make in the game. And the biggest question for me is that how is that going to affect him mentally, as opposed to some other guys that we've had in the past? And also, is Willie Martinez going to be willing, and Tim Banks going to be willing to give, the freshman pains while Bukar to have that leverage to be able to become even a better player that I think a lot of us expect him to be. So.
For sure. And I mean, we discussed the negatives when it comes to the injury report, but you got to, also point to the positives. There's been a lot of guys that may still be in a red contact or no contact jersey on the practice field, but are getting reps, getting their feet moving. I look at Lance Hurd, who people kind of got, mixed up with. We saw that clip of him going one-on-one with James Pierce. We saw the clips of Brew McCoy, even though he's on the pinch count. Brew McCoy is getting his feet wet. Dante Thornton, who got injured in that Missouri game with a freak injury, he's, on that pitch count, but still getting his feet wet as well. And I look at the running back room. We had a lot of question marks there. Looks like Peyton Lewis is back out there on the field. And it sounds like Cam Selden might be on track or even ahead of track. Drew practice notes so far, whether it's, a positive injury report or just things that are standing out. We talked last week about the wide receiver room and guys like Chaz Nimrod. So far this week, what's kind of been your pointer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big positive sign that, Cam Selden is in a red jersey and he's slowly going through drills again, because, I mean, I think he's quintessential for this running back room especially. And if we're able to get him back, say, by the NC State game, which, a few weeks ago was like he might be back October. But now from what we've been hearing, though, it looks like there's a certain possibility that he might be good to go at that point. He may even potentially be good to go by Chattanooga, but I don't expect him to play against Chattanooga at all whatsoever. Right. But hearing that news that he was getting back and he's doing well is fine. I think the big standout for me, though, a name I think a lot of people have forgotten about in this wide receiver room, because we've heard so much of Mike Matthews and Chris Brazell and Chaz Nimrod. Nathan Leacock has gotten a lot of praise recently, and even got some praise from the staff today when they were talking to the media, which, saying that he's been showing signs of life and has been taking advantage of some of the opportunities he's been given. And man, when you look at that room, I mean, that really speaks volume to the depth that we have in that position, but also like the improvements that he's had this offseason too. Because you got Brew McCoy in that room, Squirrel White, Chris Brazell, who's expected to be, potentially a starter as well. And you got, Dante's coming back from an injury, Mike Matthews, Chaz Nimrod, Caleb Webb. I mean, we got 7, 8, potentially 9 guys. I mean, absolutely stacked in that position. So to hear that he's been making those steps, because, he was a high 4-star, even on some places a 5-star coming out of high school. And even at one point at the very end was rated highly, higher than Carnell Tate, which was a guy that a lot of people were hoping that we would get. But I mean, I think that was a huge, positive trend as well. And hearing that Lance Hurd, especially being a full participant, in the group drills today, and, Holden Stays, the tight end from Notre Dame, gotten some praise as well with some of the drills with throws from Nico and such. I mean, I think, there's a lot of positives that you can go in. Now, I think the biggest thing for us is like, how's that going to turn out on Friday? And there's going to be a lot of, opportunities for guys like, like John Slaughter and, other guys in the secondary where this is their opportunity where they can be able to solidify themselves in that rotation and getting a lot of minutes. Cause, there's a lot of unprovens within that secondary. But I think as a whole, man, when you take into consideration of like where Cam Selden was a few weeks ago and where Dante was, after that Missouri injury, and hearing that these guys are slowly getting back into, drills, doing some stuff on the sidelines, some stretches and things like that. I mean, it's a big positive.
Yeah. And I mean, to hear that about Leacock, obviously a lot of people aren't going to point at that, but that's a guy last year that we kind of thought with those injuries in his first year that might be going down the depth chart with the additions of like Braylon Staley and Mike Matthews. We kind of thought that this would be a room where he just couldn't get over the hump. So to see that positive praise, and especially with Chaz and Caleb Webb as well, like I'm not penciling them in to, get into the starting rotation, but I actually definitely think they will contribute, and it's not just going to be something by hype that we've seen is like, just a three wide receivers by command kind of thing where it's just three guys. I can definitely see them, using the depth, and like they've said, they've been more loaded than they have been. Seeing Lance Hurd going one-on-one with probably the best edge rusher in the nation in that clip with James Pierce, that was a good sign, seeing that he was happy. And man, like going into this season, I probably wouldn't have been like this high on our tight end room, but to hear Ethan Davis, Miles Kisselman, Holden Stays, like they're all taking, turns in the running with the ones. It sounds like, Kisselman might be a guy that we see a lot more than we expected, even though he's going to be a 1-year guy. When he committed at midnight from Alabama, like we're just like, what? Like this is a weird pickup. But if he can have a contribution and kind of enlighten the youth in our room, this tight end room we've saw over the last 2 weeks has taken a complete 180 from where we thought on the field and recruiting. Just to see the sign up there, and definitely the running backs, the three main positions, the offensive line, the running backs, and the tight ends were probably my biggest question marks. And there's positive stock up each practice that's coming out more and more. Defense, man, all eyes are on Boo Carter, but I could definitely see a guy like John Slaughter that's become a fan favorite. It's his chance to kind of put that on the field, and we don't have those guys like our fan base last year, and we talked about it. The experience was there; it was easy to get onto them, but man, like these are guys like even if they're a transfer or coming in as a true freshman or a sophomore like Ricky Gibson. These are guys that don't have experience, and we're going from guys that were like 5th year, 6th year guys that had that SEC experience to brand new guys. And it's going to be interesting to see the ones that do flourish and become superstars, and the ones that we find out maybe just might not be ready for prime time. But 24 days away, man, it's absolutely mind-boggling how fast this has gone through the offseason, because we're actually finally there. Leading up to practice in these last final days before we get to our scrimmage, Drew, what is one thing that you still want to see that you have not seen yet?
I mean, I think probably the one thing that I want to see is like just hearing some, positive spins, or positive, praise from not just from the backup offensive line. Because I think it's quintessential for this team, especially. I mean, hearing the praise from Lance Hurd and things like that is obviously, great. You've been one because he's expected to be a starter, but like guys from like Bryson Lang and Dane Davis and these other guys are going to be in the rotation that have that opportunity. Like we need to make sure that we got about 7, 8 guys on that offensive line that can be able to play ready anytime they want to. And the other thing is for me, it's like I want to hear guys like some of the transfers like Jacoby Thomas and Jalen McMurray, especially over in that secondary, making some opportunities, taking advantage of some of the reps that they're going to have as well, and really be able to compete for both the cornerback and the free safety positions as well. Because I mean, I think Jacoby Thomas is going to play. I think he's going to be a starter. But Will Brooks has been here for a while, and he's a senior. We know how the staff can be when it comes to giving guys that have put in the time and the effort and things like that, and giving them those starting roles. So if they can be able to take advantage of those opportunities, I think we'll be in a great spot. But regardless, I mean, I think you can agree with me on this. I mean, we've been hearing a lot more positive stuff this fall camp than we were last year, for sure.
For sure, man. And I always point, no matter what position it is, it's just the depth overall. Like Tennessee the last few years, like they've been 1 or 2 injuries away from being like, okay, full panic mode. This can change like the win and loss record just alone. But I think, you have a little bit more room there. I'm not at a point where I'm saying like, oh, you can afford like injuries and be fine, because you can't. Like one injury can still change the season. But definitely I can see that experience factor playing through. Let's not act like we didn't see William Wright on the field against Bama 2 years ago. Like I'm not penciling out Will Brooks playing at the safety slot, but man, like what you point, Jacoby Thomas and Jalen McMurray, who were, All-Americans or, leaders on their team, even though they were in Group of 5 conferences. One guy that I wanted to talk about that, is really my stock up guy all year, even through his recruitment. Like we heard about Ricky Gibson, about, his lockdown presence in Alabama football. And we saw it last year, him getting his feet wet. One guy that did it across the country was Jermod McCoy. And that was a guy that played at Oregon State, but was a freshman All-American. Didn't have much to his name, had some nice film, got the freshman All-American honors. But we all, saw that was the Pac-12. We all wondered how he would do against the SEC. The notes so far about him coming out, his playmaking ability, his freak athlete to make a play, 50-50 plays, like he's going to hop on it. He's a guy that's, he sees ball, gets ball. To have him on the opposite side of Ricky Gibson and, having that kind of confidence in those two guys, I like the depth there. And if you can figure out that safety spot and you still have the veteran guy in Keenan Peely and Arian Carter, who, William Inns said he might be the one that you're talking about for years to come in Tennessee football. I feel great everywhere else. If Tim Banks and Willie Martinez can mesh a defensive back group that can go with, if what we're hearing, the defensive line group is true and those linebackers can stay healthy this year, I mean, you give decent corner play and decent safety play, Drew. Like, we're talking about a defense that the last 3 years, like, quietly, Tim Banks has had a top 30 defense, a top 40 defense. You put it all together. If Tennessee and Josh Heupel and Nico are going to make this offense what we, saw it in 2022 and beyond, I mean, if Tim Banks and, they can form a defense, we're talking about a team that can be dangerous no matter who they're playing. Like,
yeah, I mean, and for me, I would even go along the lines of saying as far as our defensive line goes, and obviously this is just nothing but praise for Rodney Gardner, considering the job that he's done in such a short span. It's been incredible. But honestly, I mean, this might be, from a depth perspective, might be the best defensive line, not just in the SEC, but the country, man. I mean, you're talking about guys that even like, Jim Nagy, who's the executive director for the Reese's Senior Bowl. I mean, he was talking about the fact that guys like Omar Norman Lott, who's a backup DT, by the way, who's a backup. I mean, like Bryson Easton's probably going to still have that role. He expects him to shoot through the draft boards this fall, and talks about the emphasis on his athleticism and how quick he is to win those one-on-one battles. And even as a backup, man, he had 5.5 sacks last year, which is insane. I mean, it really is. And so, and having those guys are going to get drafted, he'll probably a top 3 round draft pick for sure. Having that as your backup, and then you got alongside, Omari Thomas, who's been here, a very experienced guy, very consistent. James Pierce over there on the edge is just an absolute dog. And then Dominic Bailey as well on the other side too. And then you don't even take in consideration that you have behind James Pierce, Joshua Joseph, and Caleb Herring, which there's a lot of praise for. I mean, like, that's the thing. You win the game in the trenches. You win championships in the trenches. When you see Michigan, when you see Georgia, the one common thread that you've seen over the last several national champs is that they have outstanding defensive lines. And you got to have that. And I think Tennessee has that. The biggest question for me is that can our secondary be able to make plays where they weren't able to do so last year? And especially when it comes to the linebackers as well. Because losing Keenan Peely at that Virginia game was devastating. I mean, it was completely devastating. And I think the season would have changed a decent amount. Probably would have won 10 games had he stayed healthy the entire year. But if he's able to stay healthy, and, Arian Carter is able to stay healthy as well, and they're able to, do a better job as far as like the run assignments and reading those as well, I mean, sky's the limit, man, with this team. Like, I don't want to be drinking the orange Kool-Aid, but damn it. I mean, this team's talented.
Yeah. I mean,
good.
You mentioned the 2 deep at the defensive line, and I think about, guys like that Dominic Bailey and Bryson Easton and guys that have been here for a few years that are now getting their chance. Hell, even Elijah Simmons. Like, how many years have we heard Elijah Simmons' name, man? And like leading up to this year, going to the single digit, a guy that has depth around him, a guy that's had the chance to get healthy. I think now more than ever, he's learned his body, like leading up to this season. And it's not just all on him. Like, he's a guy that can quietly, do his part, play his role, and probably be if he can finally put it all together, can definitely change his defensive line. And it's not just 1 deep or 2 deep. You have that interior group at the D line. And like you mentioned, James Pierce on one side, Dominic Bailey getting praise on the other with Tyree West. Hell, Caleb Herring, like you mentioned, Caleb Herring is up 50 pounds in the offseason, man. Like, absolutely ridiculous. You look at edge rushers, man, like guys that want to be here. And the way he's transformed his body in 1 year is absolutely insane. And we're not even talking about the number 1 edge rusher in the 2023 and 2024 class and then Jordan Ross, man. Like, we're talking about guys that are, got in the system and changed their bodies in the weight room. I think this defensive line group is definitely deeper than they have been. The edge rushers on the outside, like, I think overall it's all clicking. And hot take, maybe it is a hot take, I think James Pierce is going to be more complimented on the other side than he was last year and the year before with Tyler Barron and others. I think he's going to have it, even though James Pierce is going to be double teamed against anyone he plays, but that doesn't mean that Tyree West or Caleb Herring or whoever is on that other side isn't going to be able to also comment. If you're not trying to double team the number 1 edge rusher, then, like, I don't know what your plan is coming into Tennessee. But if you think that's going to stop Rodney Garner and Mike Eckler and Robert Ayers from getting their defensive line to the quarterback, you are wrong. And that's going to be Tennessee's huge vocal point on the defensive side with their young DB group. 24 days away, but I don't think Tim Banks, me personally, would have went out there in spring practice talking about what the sky is and the limit is for this D-line group if he wasn't confident in them leading up to the season. They got to put it together, man. But Drew, we're talking about we're leading up to our season prediction, episode, but we're talking about a team that can be special in this new day and age of college football, where it's not just the 4 teams; it's a 12-team playoff.
Yeah, no, I mean absolutely. I mean this team has the tools. I mean, and this is of course with the expectation, assuming that Nico is the guy that he is going to be an improvement from Joe. Which, don't get me wrong, it's not guaranteed, but I'd be shocked. I'd be absolutely shocked if he's not, and everything that we have heard when it comes to the coaches, to the press as well, is just the improvement that there has been, the flow of the offense, the playbook opening up. And I was talking about this to one of my buddies the other day about it. One of the things that we noticed with Heupel so far here is you notice how limited the playbook was last fall with Joe Milton. A lot of those, screen passes, bubble screen passes to the side, hardly never threw across the middle. And, the thing is as well, Hendon Hooker didn't throw it across the middle either. I mean, I think there was 2 times that he ever did. And when he did, it was an interception. I think it was the Pittsburgh game, and I think he did it against Alabama. And that never happened again after his junior year. But, man, when you watch the spring game and some of this film over here during fall camp, Nico's throwing it across the middle. They're doing curl routes. They're doing bubble screens. They're throwing it down the field. I mean, they've opened up the playbook completely, and obviously because they trust the fact that Nico's able to have the accuracy and time those passes too. And, man, if we're able to do that, I mean, if we've thought already that Heupel was a genius when it comes to, offensive playbook creativity, man, I think we could potentially be mind blown in that regard for sure. And so it's exciting.
I mean, I point to I was listening to Joey Halsey and his media availability about a week or 2 ago, and he was just talking about, how much the strides Nico has taken so far. And, going back to the Citrus Bowl, how vanilla they really made it just to run an effective offense. And really, I went back and watched it, and I know some other people pointed out, but it didn't look like a different offense than when Joe Milton was running it, Drew. It was the exact same thing. They were making it easy for him. They inserted him just like they did Joe in the Orange Bowl. And knew what worked, and they kind of went out there and ran that blueprint. But they've had a full offseason to kind of give Nico the full reins, a guy that can we've seen his 50-50 playability, getting a ball where it needs to be, putting it in the right spot. This is a guy that has that playmaker ability, has that ability to extend plays with his feet, with his arm. It can be the wrong play call, and he's still getting the ball down the field. This is the guy that, if all things are right, what we hear, this is the guy that can make up for, some mistakes and definitely bail out the coaching staff if something does go wrong. Got to put it together. Got to get it all right. And, we're going to see that with his offensive line and his playmakers around him. But I truly think that this offense, it's unlimited. I would not be surprised if we see those big chunk plays return to the offense where it's just 3 or 4 things, getting people lined up wrong and being able to see Nico run it at a full speed. Yes, the offense slowed down last year, but I don't think that was by design. If you have a full guy that can, run the full reins behind a quarterback, man, this offense can be dangerous. And I fully expect Josh Heupel, just like everywhere he's been, to have another top 5 to top 10 offense this year. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's only one gap year, and we can all point, the fingers to and try to be right. But if history repeats itself, man, we're going to see Josh Heupel and Nico get this offense back on track to a top 5, top 10 offense.
Yeah. And I mean, I think them being a top 5, top 10 defense, or offense, sorry. I mean, even a top 3, I think it's an extremely high possibility. The weapons are there. The media will say, the national media, just because they don't look into practice or, focus on Tennessee's practice as much as the local media does, they'll say there's a lot of uncertainty in the wide receiver position because there's newer faces. And I mean, that makes sense. But when you look at it from a depth perspective and you look at the guys that we added, replacing Ramil Keaton with Chris Brazell, Squirrel coming back, Brew coming back, and Brew's bigger. I mean, way bigger too. It's insane,
Yeah.
And having those pieces back and, some quote unquote unproven talents. I mean, it could very well be, be like the 2022 offense, if not even better. I mean, the talent's there. I mean, that's the thing. It's just my biggest thing is like when you go on, the first big test for them will be NC State in
Yeah.
Charlotte. I mean, that will be a primetime game on ABC, night game as well. And NC State's a solid football team, and they'll be top 25 when we play them. And they have a relatively decent defense. But man, if we're able to, start off red hot there, and you're able to get a win in Oklahoma, despite it being at Norman, even though I think we're much more talented than they are. Man, if you're able to go through that unscathed, and you're 4-0 before Arkansas and then Florida and Alabama, I mean, sky's the limit.
Man, yeah, the sky is the limit. We're 24 days away from seeing it ourselves, Drew. Am I going to see you 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time sharp in Neyland Stadium for the UT Chattanooga game?
I'm going to be honest with you. I am a game time decision when it comes to that game.
I know.
I haven't missed a home opener in several years, but damn it, 12:45. It's Chattanooga. It's not, at least last year I think it was like a 6:00 game, so you could be able to get some of the pregame festivities going in. But I'll be at a few games this fall, but that's I don't know about that one.
I mean, I think if you wait it out, you might be able to benefit your wallet waiting it out for a game like UT Chat 11:45 a.m. Might get some freebies out there outside Gate 21. You never know.
Easily.
But like you said, man, the pregame amenities. Looking forward to the Vol Club tailgates. Renewed my membership there, and just overall being in Neyland, man, it doesn't matter 11:45 a.m. or p.m. I feel like there's going to be 100K there strong, and like all the hype has definitely been building up to this. Looking forward to it. Just seeing some familiar faces. Excited, man. There's nothing better than football time in Tennessee, especially when things are all going right. Wanted to give a big shout out to the 148 live and current people we do have in here via Twitter. That's pretty sick. Leading up to football, you can tell Vol Nation's getting strong and getting behind it. If you want to catch us, we are here live every Wednesday on Twitter at Vols ATB Network. Drop a follow, turn on notifications to never miss an episode. Drew, we talk about, the football and, being 25 days away. A lot of people take more note to it than just us. You got to recruit, man, or 2024, whatever. You got to recruit.
24 days.
Yeah, 24 days, 25, 24. Got to recruit, got to keep guys here, got to bring guys, bring in talent. And Tennessee wasted no time doing that over the last week when we did our last episode, man. We hinted at the announcement on Saturday of 2026 5-star quarterback Faison Brandon. Tennessee goes into the state of North Carolina, the prominent state of North Carolina, lands the number one quarterback in the 2026 class in Faison Brandon via 24/7 Sports and On3 Sports. Drew, we talk about when Tennessee is, we kind of got spoiled over the last 3 or 4 years, landing 5-star number one quarterback Nico Iamaleava, landing Jake Merklinger, a top 10 quarterback, landing the number 2 quarterback in the class, George McIntyre, who was a 5-star but got demoted because 24/7 Sports, and then the number one quarterback on both 247 Sports and On3 in 2026. It is 2 years away to 2026 class, but it cannot speak volumes how important this is for Tennessee to get ahead of the curve, especially where they were 2 or 3 years ago, landing this 5-star quarterback and kickstarting the 2026 class.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it speaks volumes for, obviously the recruiting connections, the relationships that Heupel and the staff is able to develop with the recruits. I mean, I think it's incredible that even, despite all, maybe some of the disadvantages you could say that they have compared to the competitors like Georgia and Alabama, for them to be able to still develop these relationships with these guys, get their trust and allow them to have these opportunities to become solidified starters over here. I mean, it's tremendous. And the thing is, you can look back even at the last 2 QBs that we've had. I mean, even if Joe Milton having a down year, still got drafted in the 5th or 6th round with the Patriots. And I mean, Hendon Hooker, I mean, a lot of people forget about this too. It's Hendon Hooker wasn't really that highly touted of a transfer out of Virginia Tech. I mean, he was very mediocre. He got benched. I mean, he got benched for throwing less than 2,000 yards in a season. And it was very mid. I mean, 17 touchdowns and 10 INTs and so forth. But, for him to be able to develop Hendon Hooker into a top 3 round, draft pick and, literally was, an injury away from being in New York for the Heisman ceremony. Should have been anyway. But that speaks volumes about the development that he's had, that he's been able to have with both Hendon and Joe Milton. And obviously, man, with Nico, the thing is we're set. I mean, we're set for years to come when it comes to the quarterback position. I think the QB position and wideouts are the least of my worries when it comes to the staff. Like my only thing that like I'm a little bit more concerned about is like how can we be able to improve the secondary, get some prominent DBs, some safeties, and obviously with the 2025 class, they've been doing a fantastic job with that for sure. But man, when you got Nico leaving and you potentially have either George, McIntyre, or Faison Brandon, I mean, both of those guys are outstanding players. Fantastic quarterbacks, and both really complement the system that Heupel's been able to develop over here. I mean, it puts us in a great position, and it sucks for guys like Jake Merklinger and other dudes where they're highly 4 stars, and like odds are, I mean, they may surprise us. Like never say never, but like odds are, like some of these guys are going to get weeded out and they're going to transfer over. But that's the sign of an extremely healthy program. Where when you guys have like 4 stars like Jake Merklinger, who probably would start at 80% of the schools like in D1 football, to have potentially him going transferring out and going to other places. I mean, that speaks volumes for the program, and not to mention the depth and talent that we have here at Tennessee. So massive pickup, and obviously you'll talk about here soon, but also the pickup of Carson Snead as well to complement that the very next day. I mean, we've been talking about how this 2025 class is going to be the best, obviously the best the Heupel's had here so far, and looking at a potential, solidified top 10, if not even a top 5. Man, I don't know. I think 2026 might even be better. I mean, they're off to a red hot start right now.
I mean, you go out there and you win 9 or 10 games this season, and going into next year, having Faison Brandon with 2 years under his belt to recruit not just only his senior year of high school, like the past few quarterback commits have had, but to get that head start. And if you're truly the number one quarterback in the class, the number one player in the class, you're going to attract top talent no matter what camp you're going to. As a rivals, Elite 11, to be able to peer recruit and be like, yo, come play at Tennessee. Like obviously you're a good defensive player. You're a 5-star, 4-star safety. Like Tennessee doesn't really have that. You can come in here, contribute early on that side of the ball, speed up the process, preach, everything they want to hear. But man, like when I look at like elite programs, and I go back to Bama over the last decade, and Clemson like last 2 decades or the last decade as well. Like you have 3 or 4 quarterbacks, and if you have those 3 or 4 program changing quarterbacks, you're going to be an elite program for the next like at least 5 to 6 years. Like as long as those quarterbacks stay with your program, and then not only do that with Nico right now, you have Merklinger, who's your a second string or third string quarterback, whether he's in front or behind Gaston Moore. You got GMAC, who's about to play his, senior year in high school, who a guy that's about to probably have his best season in high school with talent around him, a guy that's been able to peer recruit and obviously still peer recruiting in the 2025 class. And then you get your signal caller already ahead in 2026. You're seeing those prominent programs that are going to be at the top of college football kind of go ahead and getting their 2026 quarterback. For Tennessee to go in there and land the number 1 quarterback speaks volume. And like I said, like you look at, the class of, Tua and Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones, like these guys that do wait their turn and trust the process. Like a lot of these guys, not only have they had a great, benefit NIL wise, but they're trusting the system of Josh Heupel and seeing what he's done, from Missouri, Oklahoma, and now at Tennessee with Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker, that they can go in here and trust the process. And, I look at a guy like Jake Merklinger, knock on wood. I don't want, we don't want to see an injury to Nico Iamaleava this year, but if that does happen and Gaston Moore isn't the guy, and you have to, invest in Jake Merklinger, that's not a guy that you can just be like, oh, so long. Like you have to you're going to the portal next year. Like I'm going to uninvest in you. This is the guy that's going to be on our roster this year. And if I'm the staff, I'm like, hey, let's go ahead and develop you because you're going to need to develop quicker anyway. And never say never, but you're going to have the job to compete when Nico's gone. And if you want to do the best thing for you, then we'll support you, and you can go somewhere and be the guy. But man, like to be able to have those guys in your back pocket and be able to recruit at that elite of a level. Obviously, none of us want to see our Polynesian Prince get injured, but to be able to have that kind of talent as your backup, you can't really point a lot of places in the nation and be like they have that elite guy in their backup. And Jake Merklinger is not a scrub, man. This is the guy that was probably the second or third quarterback in the state of Georgia behind Dylan Raiola and others. Like this is the guy that didn't do all the camps, didn't do all that. Was just a good high school state of Georgia football player. Like I have all the confidence that if anyone can turn him around and make him that kind of elite prospect, it is Josh Heupel and Joey Halsey.
Oh yeah.
But to talk about the process and speeding up the process, you're recruiting an elite quarterback, Drew. You're probably going to have an elite program for years to come. You can fill in the holes as they go. And all eyes on the 2025 class are definitely going forward on guys like 5-star offensive tackle David Sanders and 4-star cornerback Onis Konanbanny. But I think Tennessee really at this point, as they get to the new signing day of December in this day and age of college football, there's some guys they're going to give another phone call to. They're going to go out there and try to compete on the field this season with Nico behind the helm. They're going to go try to shock the world and have a 10-2 season. And I would not be surprised to see Tennessee, go back on some guys like they have in the past who they missed out on the first time around and try to flip some guys come to signing day. Still look at, 4-star in-state athlete Donnie Morris at Oakland, high school football starting up in the state of Tennessee. It's only a 2-hour drive for the staff to go out there and work on that one. Would not be surprised for them to keep stuff going in there. And, just overall, man, the defense side of the ball, I think they're not done there as well. But like you said, speeding up the process, 2025 is one thing. We're, hype about that. And it's definitely looking like a top 5 to top 10 class when it's all said and done. But 2026, man, you can talk about it being like a top 3 to 5 class. You put all the pieces together, you go out there and have a good season. Like, this is a class where you point at the top 10 in this day and age, and you probably say like the top 10 is equivalent to like 10 through 15, 10 through 20 in this day and age of recruiting. If you're in that 3 to 5, class ranking, you're probably like competing for championships at this level of recruiting. And if Tennessee can we talked about getting back to this top 10. If you can put something on the field with where you're at right now, we're talking about Tennessee and Faison Brandon with him in the boat being able to make some real damage in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's so quintessential for this season as well. It's like, obviously not just for the 2025 class, but because, I mean, overwhelming majority of those guys, with the exception of a couple, I'm sure they'll be here and there in the fall, are pretty much solidified and will be coming here. But man, like, if you're able to get a college football appearance, by year 4 for Heupel, and off an NCAA investigation from like less than a couple of years ago, and all the drama that came in when he first took over this program, and you're able to get a college football playoff appearance this fall, I mean, man, it's going to do wonders. Like for the program, for recruiting especially. I mean, they're already doing a great job, but like that's the difference, man, between having like a top 10 class and like having a top 5 class. You win 10 games, you win 11 games this year, you're going to get top 5 classes from here on out. Unless something just incredibly just collapses. But I highly, highly, highly doubt that with this staff and with the culture, especially that we have right now because of the staff. So they're in a fantastic spot. This is the best position that Tennessee's been in easily since Philip Fulmer, probably, late 90s, early 2000s. As far as the culture goes, bringing in the guys, that can be able to compete for starting positions immediately once they arrive on campus. And yeah, man, it's exciting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, to quote the old coach Philip Fulmer, the recruiting has been good. But man, it's one thing to recruit well. You got to keep the momentum going. You got to keep it all in check. And you can get those guys in the boat. You got to have the season to keep them in the boat. Definitely don't want to see any decommits when they lock this class in and get it going. The stock is up. The stock is definitely up. You got to keep it going. You got to stay on track. All signs, man, like all the stocks are up. The stock of Tennessee athletics is up. Drew, it would not be my character to not, spend this good time talking about the greatness and the positivity of Tennessee athletics, to not go and spend 5 to 10 minutes dunking on some guys that I feel like much deserve it. We got to talk about this Kentucky situation, Drew. The 10-win season is gone. All 10 wins are gone. Kentucky, if y'all have not seen, has been sanctioned by the NCAA on probation. I think it was 11 players that were on the payroll of the UK hospital that were not working to receive NIL benefits. The greatest season in Kentucky football is gone, Drew. It is gone.
Yeah. So incredibly unfortunate for them. Obviously not. For them, the only decent season they've had. I mean, in fairness, I think 2018 they won 10 games as well. But the 2 10-win seasons that they've had in the last 65 years, for them to one of them just no longer exist, extremely unfortunate, but also not really surprising. The one thing that I was kind of a little surprised about was that I don't really remember them at all being investigated by the NCAA. This kind of seemed like it just came out of the blue, which was also like really strange too. But It will be interesting to see though, like what Kentucky's athletic department does and how they respond, because obviously the NCAA still has that antitrust lawsuit that they have with state of Tennessee and Virginia, and I believe Florida and a couple other states as well. So I'm curious as to whether they're going to try to fight this one in court as well, or if they're just going to accept it. It seems like the only thing they had was like the 10 wins that were vacated and like a couple of scholarships or something like that, and probation, like nothing too insane. But yeah, highly unfortunate for them.
This like you said, like this doesn't seem like the NCAA like was like done yet, like or even got started. Like this feels like Kentucky was basically like, all right, like you got us, you caught us, we're gonna agree to this and agree to these sanctions, and basically just gave up their 10-win season and was like, we don't want any of this mess. But like Drew, like it's the year 2024. Like the NCAA in every case they've had has lost. Like they've been wiped across the board in the Supreme Court when it comes to federal like investigations. Kentucky just to basically like bow down and take the sanctions and agree to do this to themselves in this day and age of football, when they could just been like, yo, get out of Lexington. Like if you want to do this the hard way, like, yeah, we'll go to court, but like we're not gonna like, if you were a serious program, you just be like, yo, we're not gonna bend over for no one or like kick rocks. They were just like, all right, cool. Go ahead and get this over with, give us the 2 years of probation. Like I mean, for a guy that was almost out of Lexington overnight, and Mark Stoops that literally got shianoed by A&M before they hired Mike Elko, to see his one of his 2 10-win seasons is also gone, with the fan base is already out on him. If Kentucky did this themselves, like the fan base isn't only going to be pissed that Mark Stoops is going back to the AD and everyone else, man. Like, you can't just bend over to the NCAA in 2024.
Well, I mean, the thing is like, and I'm for one not the type of individual that would stir up rumors or create conspiracy theories. However, for them to be so acceptant and be like, yes, we're going to vacate the 10 wins, we're going to take probation, like absolutely. This does make you wonder though.
Yeah.
Is there something that they're covering up? Is there something larger that we're unaware of when it comes to their NIL collective? And I mean, I'm not the one saying it. However, for them to be so absolutely, we're going to do this and like no question, even like the NCAA should have been like, hold up. What do you mean by that? Like, are you sure? Like, are you sure like you're not trying to cover something else up that we're unaware of? And like, again, I would never in a million years even start anything like that. However, it seems a little fishy.
I just think it was funny how dominant John Calipari was before the NIL era at Kentucky. I mean, I don't know, but exactly. it's just funny to me that it comes via football for UK athletics when they're kind of already out on Mark Stoops and calling this his farewell run. We talk about not bowing down to the NCAA, and we saw one team that didn't bow down to the NCAA, and we saw their punishment come down. The Michigan football program, not an SEC school, but the Big Ten. Jim Harbaugh is out the door, but that does not stop the fact that he got a 4-year show clause from the NCAA today, coming down from the COVID recruiting and the practices going on in that dead period. Also with a 1-year suspension when he does come back. Man, not even just to Jim Harbaugh, because he's like that guy that, like is in college now about to get in trouble for a high school paper, Drew. But Sharon Moore, a guy that's a guy that went 3-0 in the last few games from what Harbaugh, and the mess he created last year before the national championship, to a guy that's just now trying to like rebuild the Michigan program with his back against the wall. Obviously, his players in the portal or going to the league, like a brand new Michigan football team. And not only does he have to worry about these repercussions from, Jim Harbaugh via the dead period, but we're not even on the horizon of the Connor Stallions case, whose 30 for 30 series drops on Netflix this weekend. Like,
no, this is not good for Michigan at all. First of all, like let's call a spade a spade. Like this was sleazy as hell from Jim Harbaugh. As soon as you win a national championship at your alma mater, he immediately bolted for the Chargers. Which don't get me wrong, Justin Herbert's a top 10 quarterback. He's a fantastic quarterback, but he had way better job opportunities 2 years ago. Than the Chargers. You bowled for the first job that you immediately was offered, right? And then on top of that, you try to say on the media, I think he even said in the media a couple days ago, like I think on Monday, he's like, it's ludicrous, it's ridiculous. Like I'm here to focus on the Chargers, like whatever. And it's just like, dude, like you're just lying through your teeth. I mean, and that's exactly what he did. It's not a good look, man. And, I feel bad for guys like Sharon Moore because, he did win your final 3 Big Ten games without your head coach, with him being the interim, beating Ohio State, beating Penn State on the road. That was impressive. That was impressive from him, the guy that never had any head coaching experience, but damn it, though, he has got a hell of a haul and a hell of a rebuild. And
He's
I'm afraid for Michigan, like they're going to wind up. I think they're going to wind up getting a bowl ban or a postseason ban of some sort. And I could see this kind of wind up like how USC was right after Pete Carroll left for the Seahawks, which is vacate a national championship, several dozen wins, and all sorts of other different accolades as well.
This guy, he took those 3 games. He took it serious, knowing that Harbaugh was probably out the door going to the league, no matter what team it was. He went 3-0. He cried on national television, Drew. Like, this is a guy that, was giving his all for the Michigan program. The players wanted him. They, forced Michigan's athletic department to, go in and hire Sharon Moore, a guy who's going to be the players coach. And not only does he have to inherit this mess from Harbaugh, but it sounds like he's not into a too good spot himself, deleting 56 text messages with Connor Stallions.
No.
That's coming out next week. A guy that is very well facing a show clause. The proof is in the pudding. We saw this with past Tennessee staffs, especially the previous staff before this, and the show clause they happened with the NCAA. And I think the one guy, like we keep talking about, Jim Harbaugh, he's there, and I'm sure that he's going to be affected by this with his 5-year, $16 million a year contract in Los Angeles. Like, he's a guy that got out completely scotch-free, and a guy that, wanted to go in here and invest in a program that he truly does love. Might be a guy that's fired before he even coaches a real game as the actual coach. Like,
yeah,
crazy.
it is. They're an absolute dumpster fire. You're talking about, it's like one of those deals where it's like, you sold your soul to the devil to win a national championship. Well, hell, they certainly did that, and they're paying the price for it right now because they are a complete dumpster fire. And I think the years and the days of Michigan dominating the Big Ten over the last few seasons, I think those are long gone for sure. And it's just how it goes. Personally, I wish it was Ohio State was dealing with all this because I hate them with a fiery passion, but unfortunately, it's not. It's Michigan. And, Sharon Moore deleting those text messages with Connor Stallions was incredibly, incredibly moronic. And even if it might not even be anything, which obviously it's something because it deleted them as soon as his name got out for that investigation a year ago. This is not a good look. I would be surprised if he's there for more than 2 seasons. In fact, I'd be surprised even if he's here for an entire fall, quite honestly. It is getting bad, and it's getting worse by the day. And obviously, once this Netflix Untold comes out this weekend, we're going to get to know way more from Connor Stallion's perspective of it as an insane and an unbelievable story as well. This is nuts. This makes the Jeremy Pruitt investigation look like it's like, it looks like elementary work, compared to Michigan.
Dude, like, getting the confirmation, they finally confirmed after a whole year under investigation that he was in fact at the Central Michigan versus Michigan State game, scouting on the Central Michigan, sideline with a press pass. Leading up to it, he was in fact at the Tennessee versus Kentucky game in 2022. And as Vols fans, this documentary is going to be one of the craziest we've seen in like college athletics maybe in general when it comes down to it. But we can finally get that closure of like, did this actually directly affect Tennessee or not? And like, even if it didn't, point out to it, but Drew, we're talking about a guy that the relationships all point together, the relationships with, Shane Beamer and Dabo, and leading up to that game, the games that Connor Stallions did scout. I'm interested to see, we've seen the Florida documentary, and we've seen, little documentaries that come out in sports where they kind of, they say the good, but they don't really go in full detail of the bad. I hope we get the 100% truth when it comes to the Connor Stallions case and the games he was at, because there's got to be a reason that this man was watching Tennessee versus Kentucky during a spooky Rocky Top game.
There was most certainly a reason why, because I think they all had the indication that Tennessee was going to wind up playing Michigan in the playoff. I don't think that's a conspiracy theory at all. So I think it's going to go 2 ways. I think he's either just going to lay his entire guts on the table and just be like, this is what went down, this is what happened. Or because of the fact that it is a ongoing NCAA investigation, And there is potentially some legal issues if he does spew out some information that's supposed to be confidential during an investigation. We might not get nothing. It might just be like one of those things that he talks about, where we already know, like where he goes into the Central Michigan and
Oh,
Michigan
yeah.
State, like kind of like how that Florida documentary was, about Urban Meyer and all of them, that came out a year ago. So I think it's going to go either or. Personally, I hope he spills his guts out. And I mean, this is one of the craziest stories I've ever heard, not just in college football, but just in sports in general. I mean, to have essentially a paid intern to go over and buy tickets against his opposing teams and literally scout them in the
Dude, like,
stands, on the field. It's insane. I mean, it's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
it just blows my mind that he has like direct contact of scouting Tennessee and scouting Clemson, and then South Carolina goes out there the last 2 weeks of being a poverty program, the full entire season, and knocks off two programs that are playing for playoff contention because they now have randomly these new created wristbands on defense for their new defensive coordinator. Like, just absolutely ironic how it happened, and the way that it broke down to the public through message board geniuses or just overall everyday fans, man, to see it all break down, and us putting it together as fans. So now we're talking about a fucking documentary not even a year later, coming out 2 weeks before college football starts. It's absolutely peak content, peak college athletics, and we're talking about a program that has been historically one of the best programs of all time in college athletics and college football in Michigan, that could just
Yeah.
be going down the drain because Harbaugh basically said, "I'm done with you." Like, it is absolutely insane, and it doesn't get any better than this, Drew. 3 weeks out, and this is our build up.
I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And I mean, I think for, not to stay too off topic about Michigan, but I could very easily see them go the USC route, which is like hit their peak. And as soon as this investigation concludes and they get a couple-year bowl ban, they're never going to be able to recover. I mean, and Michigan's a big enough program where obviously they'll get the right guy at some point and be back to a top-tier program. I mean, obviously Jim Harbaugh did that, but man, it's going to be a long time for them. And sucks to suck, but maybe you shouldn't cheat. Unlike us, we would never cheat at all, ever.
Yeah, there's at least they cheated and won a natty, and we cheated and won 3 games. So
yeah, that's true. We cheated and we lost to Georgia State. So I mean, that's also true. So
I mean,
God, that pisses me off so much. You lose to Georgia State and lose to BYU in the same year, and we cheated our asses off. Like, oh my God, man! Like,
it's crazy.
Thank God that was 5 years ago.
You did mention the good news that after we got the commitment of Faison Brandon, we did secure 4-star tight end Carson Sneed from Donaldson Christian Academy in Nashville. Younger brother of current Tennessee walk-on Dayton Sneed, wide receiver, who is a spring game god when it comes to Tennessee and Neyland Stadium. He has had a few touchdowns in some spring games. So to see those two brothers finally together, another 2026 commit, Faison gets his first target in the class, and a guy that Tennessee kind of traded for a long time. That was a big recruiting win. And then I did not want to end the show without talking about the absolute tear that our beloved Christian Moore is on, Drew. Going, lasted in AA for in single A for 2 days. Had his AA debut yesterday, and I'm sure in the next week, when we come back for this show next week, we're going to be talking about this man probably on the brink of going to the AAA. Like, this guy is a guy that is going through the farm system, and we all knew what SEMO was capable of. But so far, the trajectory he's on, man, if he can just stay consistent, we're talking about a guy that, if not next season, maybe before this season ends, is probably has a chance to get to the show, but not likely.
Well, I mean, I think he, with the franchise that the Angels are, I mean, the Angels are a deadbeat franchise where they have zero desire to ever win anything, and they're consistently dead last in their division every single year. In fact, I think they're probably, I want to say third or fourth in their division. I think there's a good opportunity. He might wind up kind of like how Garrett Crochet did, which is go through the ranks extremely quickly, and by September, I mean, I'm going to make the hot prediction right here on the Vols ATB podcast. Christian Moore will have already made his MLB debut by September. So I
can
think
100% see it.
I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, think about it too. They're going to try to find a way to be able to get ticket sales what better way? What better way to be able to get butts in seats when your season's already gone than to say, we just hired, we just picked this kid in the first round from Tennessee, and within 6 weeks, he went from playing single A ball to the pros. And I think, to the big league. I mean, I think he can certainly do that. I mean, so if for whatever reason, which I refuse to believe otherwise, he'll absolutely have, he'll make his debut on opening day in 2025. But the kid's incredible. He had an amazing season. Obviously, if it wasn't for Christian Moore, Tennessee does not win a national championship this year. And I will still stand on this. His performance against Florida State, when it comes to any sport in Tennessee history, I think is one of the top 3 greatest performances I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, I mean there's nothing beating that cycle performance. I mean, man, you look at the start he's had so far, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. This is a franchise and the Angels that has proven to kind of invest in their young guys kind of early. They call up a lot of guys early, especially at the shortstop position. They don't have a lot of depth there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Christian, like a lot of people, penciled him in as like an outfielder kind of guy to start off, but I could definitely see him playing some infield just because of their history of calling guys up early. And if you're a Tennessee Vols fan and you're in the state of Tennessee next week, if he's not already in the AAAs, like you have a chance to go out there and see him in Chattanooga against the Lookouts. I'm sure a lot of Vols fan down there in the chat area will be at that game. A lot of people have bought tickets for that game, and I've been trying to say like, yo, he might not even be there. Like, there's a very good chance that he could be in the AAA. And if he does kind of stay put, man, you do get the postseason play. The Smokies do travel and will play Christian Moore, but that will not be in Knoxville. There is a chance that if he does make it to postseason play, that if the Smokies do play, they could meet in Knoxville. And that would be a good welcome home, man, for SEMO. But I truly, honestly don't see it. I got a couple of friends that are big Angels fans, and they're stock so far in SEMO. And just Tennessee players in general, man, I think they've gotten like SEMO and Ben Joyce, and right now they're like, yo, give us all the balls we can get. Like, I literally had friends say that. It's just ridiculous. And the sky's the limit for him, man. He has the power. He's facing, top level arms. And I could honestly argue that the arms that he played, in his senior year might be better arms than he's facing right now. This is the guy that's had all the experience. And if he can put it all together, we've seen what SEMO can do, man. He can be in the majors before it's all said and done.
Oh yeah, no, I mean he's got the sky's the limit for the kid. He's got all the ability and all the talent to be able to to not just be an MLB starter, but to be a star in the league. I mean the kid's unbelievable. So, and I mean it speaks volumes, man, for this Tennessee baseball program to be able to have someone like him and Garrett Crochet, by the way, which I know I've mentioned his name a couple times already, but he's one of the best pitchers in baseball already. And he came through Tony Vitello as well. And honestly, let's be real, that COVID team in 2020, that team might have been better than this year's team, honestly, from a talent perspective. So unfortunate we had a global pandemic occur, but that probably would have been the first national championship for Tennessee, realistically. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to have 2 guys or be able to, SEMO go through the ranks looking like he's going to be in the pros here soon, and Crochet being one of the top pitchers in the league speaks volumes for Tennessee baseball. And it shouldn't be a surprise at all whatsoever why Tennessee the last couple of years has had incredible recruiting classes as well. So good stuff for the program. Obviously, Lindsey Nelson Stadium is still going through some major renovations and much needed renovations, by the way. But hopefully they can be able to continue through that. Also want to ask you on this, by the way, before we end the show. I think we didn't talk about it on the last show, but man, this crazy entertainment district idea that Danny No Nugs has. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, I personally love it. I think it's going to be insane. I think it's exactly something that the city of Knoxville has been needing for a long time, to be that bridge between TBA and Neyland, and just as a pregame spot for obviously football and basketball games, but concerts as well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on like this potential battery, the battery in Atlanta that they're going to have, on top of G10.
I mean, like, it's like the old Drake song where it goes like 0 to 100 real quick. Like, obviously, you look at Neyland Stadium and the environment that was already there in Knoxville, going like from the Vol Walk and all the pregame activities. It was definitely not at 0, but down. Like, they turned it up all the way, like, real quick. And I was listening to the Danny White interview with Brent Hubbs over there at VolQuest. And basically, they were talking about, when they wanted just to upgrade the stadium in general and make it look pretty again, and like, look look visible to like the opposing fan bases that is coming in. The brick alone was going to cost like what, like $100 million or something crazy like that. So they're like, yo, like what better way to do this than to really, like, they put the word visionary to definition, bro, because it takes a visionary mindset to even plan out this whole entire, like, tearing down G10, building a hotel outside Neyland Stadium on the river, building a whole new bridge to invest in new parking, to like make sure your students are also taken care of in this whole entire process. And I mean, it looks like this strip that's going to be coming in, like, I'm definitely calling it the Danny District. It's going to end up paying for itself and paying for the future of Tennessee athletics in itself. And it goes back to, like I said, like them being a visionary, not only from like, the school and the chancellor and Randy Boyd, but Danny White, to put image to reality and to find that money and, get those people that are going to be able to buy into this project. I mean, we're talking about like donors being able to, vividly want to choose to watch the game in a hotel, Drew, than go and be in an Neyland Stadium. Like, it is going to be absolutely ridiculous, the money that's bringing in. For the casual fan, I don't want to even think about yet for how it's going to affect us. But overall, for the program, it is going to, make the pockets a lot deeper. And I can just see that, man, like if Neyland can get that makeover it truly needs, and, you have a couple more, major Vol shop stores with companies that are coming in and boosting the Knoxville economy. Dude, we're talking about not only just for the school, but the city of Knoxville as well. And we're getting to a day and age where this is the new day and age of college athletics, where there's going to be a name on everything. Like, we've already saw it in Neyland, home of the Vols, Yeehaw Brewery on the party deck. Everything's going to have a name. Everything's going to be bought out. And Danny White, to even get ahead of this curve, like, dude, it's going to pay for itself. It's going to boost everything.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to pay for itself. And I mean, and I think a lot of people are worried about the fact of, like, them tearing down G10, building a new parking lot, how this is going to affect parking. It's still going to have the exact same number of parking spots as G10 already has. So it's not going to affect it anything at all whatsoever. And if anything, like, having an entertainment district and things like that, you bring more of that, like, tailgating environment over closer to the stadium. So it's going to make a better environment. It gives people other options as well. And I mean, and for people that have been to Braves games, like at SunTrust, the Battery, I mean, the people that own the Battery, they're essentially going to be the ones that are like the architects who are going to be designing this and developing this, this project. But man, I mean, the thing is like, if anybody's been to the Battery, like, it is a complete game changer. I mean, like, it's nothing like it. And that's why, even schools like Florida State have tried to get something similar. But man, we got a visionary of an athletic director where, like, I truly believe they're going to nail this thing on the dime, whether if it's going to be 4 or 5 years from now, and it's going to be perfect. I mean, so it's exciting. Anytime that there's any new developments when it comes to UT athletics around the surrounding areas to improve the game day experience, or just to improve the city, city life in Knoxville as well, I'm all for it. So,
I mean, I could definitely see it moving, like the overall like tailgate environment to like more like custom built things, like whatever structure they're going to build. I could see it moving into these new districts, or like however like the crowds are going to be more compact. And I could definitely see like areas like Circle Park and around that area, just behind G10 leading up to Neyland, definitely like seeing a boost, man. We've seen the tailgates environments, whether it's the Vol Club at Circle Park and all the tents around there, for them to actually have like a home, have their own indoor facility, and whatever it is, whoever does, drops the whatever large amount of money it's going to take for them to come into agreements with Tennessee. I think it's going to benefit that well. It's going to kind of move the tailgate, not move it from G10, but also have that hotel and like money kind of vibe from across the bridge, and seeing that new bridge to kind of connect everything, man. Like, I think it's going to be bringing it all together. And me being a Nashville native, seeing how, walking across the bridge from downtown to Nissan and et cetera, I think it's going to kind of give it that element of where it kind of benefits everyone. And it's not just like a rich kid, richer kind of thing. Like, this is the casual fan is going to have their experience just taken to the limit, man. It doesn't matter if it's, being respected by ourselves or opposing fan bases. You cannot come into Neyland Stadium or Knoxville, Tennessee in the next 5 years and not say that this is probably not one of the best environments. Like, just not just the stadium, man, but overall sports environments in the world.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And it's only going to improve things as far as the environment goes. And, and honestly, as well, just giving people other options as a way to spend their pregame tailgates and so forth. But yeah, man, it looks like we hit the hour mark, man. You got any final thoughts? I think we've spoke everything, honestly.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, shout out to our boy Big Shot Rob. Couldn't join us playing Father of the Year. No, he'll be back here next week with us. And I know we're getting closer to the return of our good friend Lowe on the show as football approaches. And 24 days away from season, it'd be wrong of us not in the next 1 or 2 weeks to kind of break down and do our season predictions. So I'm sure that'll end up coming for some, foreshadowing, breaking down the season as it comes up, little prediction episodes. But I mean, Drew, like, recruiting has been good, to quote, Philip Fulmer. The overall program is on a rise, whether it's, men's sports, college athletics, all around, man. Definitely going to be getting locked in for the rest of my night to the Olympics. But we talked about football practice. We talked about, leading up to the season, we talked about the 2026 recruiting class and, the college football world burning down for some programs as we lead up 24 days away from the greatest 12 to 15 weeks of our lives. Any final thoughts that we did not cover as we end the show off and break it down?
No, I mean, I think we covered everything to a T, no pun intended. And, I mean, the thing is while, this nation's stock is completely crumbling and falling down to the ground, Tennessee stock, however, is higher than ever, and it's only going to get better as well. So exciting times ahead on Rocky Top. And, hopefully we get some good positive feedback over in the scrimmage on Friday. And unfortunately, I won't be on the show next Wednesday. I will be much needed beach time that I desperatally need mentally. But you guys
2 weeks.
2 weeks, I'll be back. But obviously, Brando, Vols Scoops, and Big Shot Rob and the lads, they will be able to give you a full down breakdown on that Friday scrimmage, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we hear some good news.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to the scrimmage notes. Like I said, you only get 10 to 15 minutes of open air, practice media coverage from the media. Josh Heupel is super strict about his routes on air and his offense being seen by the media when it comes to fall camp. So take everything you're seeing from it with a grain of salt. I'm sure we'll hear from Heupel and co after the scrimmage on Friday, and we'll definitely talk about that next week. And in probably 2 weeks when Drew does return, definitely look into doing the season prediction, because we'll probably be 10 days away from the season at that point, which is absolutely insane. Like that's crazy. So that'll be a perfect leading up to it. But yeah, man, the stock is high. Tennessee athletics is always, going up. And like we said, man, the fan base is definitely buying into it. Shout out to the 250 live concurrent viewers, not just total viewers, live concurrent viewers joining us on Twitter and X right now. So shout out to y'all. And we do this every Wednesday, man. So looking forward to having the full crew, looking forward to talking, some Vols. And, I think we kind of wrapped up everything, man. Look out for Saturday. Huge scrimmage. And, man, it's about that time, Drew. It's about that time. So
it is.
We're back here next Wednesday, hopefully. If not, the next Wednesday after that, but we'll keep you posted. Just make sure to drop us a follow on all socials at Vols ATB. And I'm going to play the new intro as our outro because it's pretty fucking sick. So until the next time, good night and go Vols, baby.
Tea on the